Hey guys, Matt with BleepinJeep. Today I wanted to make an update video on the Bleepin winch line. You heard that right, the Bleepin winch line, formerly known as the Freedom winch line. That's right, we're changing the name to the Bleepin winch line. Why, you might ask? Well, long story short, we got threatened with a lawsuit. So this has nothing to do with the patent or the design, only the name. So the name, we did get a trademark on the name, Freedom Winch Line, but apparently that wasn't good enough. So I figured when you get a trademark, everything's good to go, right? Well, apparently not. So we had this trademark, and the trademark deals with the name that you're gonna call your thing. And we got it, it was approved. I thought everything was good. Apparently, there is a company that's claiming that they used that name prior to the date that I did. And instead of fighting it, I know a lot of you guys are going to say you should fight this in court. Instead of fighting it, we are going to just change the name. It makes a lot more sense. It goes along with the brand, Bleepin Winch Line. It's very congruent. So from now on, this device right here is going to be called and known as the Bleepin Winch Line. So it's going to take me a little while to get used to that. I hope you guys can get used to that as well, but I think it's a fitting name. So anything Freedom Winch Line is not going to be associated with us at all after this point. All those old videos, obviously those can't change, but anything from here on out is going to be called the Bleepin Winch Line. Anything called the Freedom Winch Line will not be associated with us, and we do have a patent. The patent doesn't change, the design doesn't change, only the name, but we do have a patent on this. You cannot buy this anywhere else other than at BleepinJeep.com. Anything else is just going to be either a regular winch line or it's going to be a scam. So please don't fall for that. If you see something that's too good to be true, it probably is. The Bleepin winch line can only be found at BleepinJeep.com. I think that's another good reason for the name change as well, because I did hear from a couple of people who bought what they thought was my winch line. It showed up at their house and it was just a regular winch line. So please don't be fooled. Make sure you get it at the right place. Make sure you're getting the appropriate thing. And if you guys haven't heard of the Bleepin winch line, let me show you what it is. So if you haven't heard of the Bleepin winch line before, what it is a metal-free, all-in-one, no accessories required winch line. So this thing goes right up into your winch. You pull it out. It's got everything that you need right here to do any sort of winch operation. No accessories required. What does that mean, you might ask? Well, no accessories required is exactly that. You don't need a metal hook. You don't need a tree saver. You don't need a soft shackle. You don't need a hard shackle. You don't need anything other than what is right there in your winch. So this is the main body of the Bleepin winch line right here. It's got a big knot at the end of it, and then you've got this loop that can be taken off. It can be replaced. That's what you guys wanted. So version 2, we came up with that. Version 1, this thing was attached. Version 2, you guys said you wanted it removable, so that is now removable. This is called the Bleepin loop. And what that does is allow you to go around something real small. So let's say you wanted to winch to somebody's hard shackle. You can just go like that, put that around the end, and you're winching. If you've got something else small, let's say you've got a tube that you want to go around, boom, you are winching. Let's say you want to go around anything small, that's your device right there. Now, what I like to do is you can take this off or you can leave it on. If you want, you can leave it on. It works great as a handle and it tucks right up in here. You can even put that in here like this, tucks away. But if you are not going to be winching for a long time, let's say you're just driving around town, you can take this off, and I like to put the Bleepin loop on my shifter and just keep that there. That way this tucks in a little bit nicer. But what's also great about the Bleepin winch line, half the time you don't even need the Bleepin loop, because along the line there's 3 openings down the line. We've got one about 3 feet, 6 feet, and 8 feet. So these openings, what you can do is go around anything like a bumper, a tube, a tree, anything, and hook right back to itself, and you can winch there. let's say you've got something bigger, like a big, giant, massive tree. That thing goes right around the tree and back to itself. Once again, there are 2 more openings down the line. So you can get up to an 8-foot diameter tree. That's a big tree, and you don't have to use any accessories. Now, what about the tree saver, you might ask? Well, I always recommend you use a tree saver, but you don't have to. A lot of cases you might be in a hurry. I should rephrase that. A lot of cases you might need to do a quick recovery because somebody's life is in danger, and in that case, forget the tree saver, like I say. But another thing great about the Bleepin winch line is that you got to remember this thing is much thicker right here than a regular winch line because it's doubled up. So it's not going to damage the tree as much as a single winch line. And in most cases, I've seen people just, all they have is the hook or all they have is the thimble. And in that case, they don't even use a tree saver at all. In this case, it's going to be much better for the tree because all it does is pull on the backside of the tree. It doesn't cinch around like a typical hook and a typical shackle will cinch around and choke the tree out. Once again, it's much thicker, but all it does is pull on the one side of the tree. But like I said, if it's not a life-threatening situation, somebody isn't rolled over upside down with their arm trapped, definitely use a tree saver if possible. A lot of the questions I got is, why did you come up with the Bleepin winch line, or how did you think about it? Let's use this stand-in tree here. My biggest complaint was that people, when I would go to help them winch, this is what they had. And you would get to the tree and then you would yell out, "Hey, do you have a tree saver?" And they would say, "No, I don't," or "It's in the back, I can't get to it right now." So you would inevitably have to cinch the tree and then choke it to death. Now, what's even worse than this one is they came out with these things and people started buying them, and I don't blame them. They look really cool. But the problem I had, and the main reason why I came up with the Bleepin winch line, is you'd get to the tree with this thing. In this case, you can't even wrap it around and attach it to itself. And you would ask them, "Hey, do you have a hard shackle?" Because that's what you need. You need one of these hard shackles to complete the winch operation. And a lot of people didn't even have one. I don't think they even understood the winching principles. So these are cool, but without accessories, they don't work at all. So I thought to myself, there's got to be some sort of solution here. And it took me years. I thought about this for years, and I had all kinds of crazy ideas. And a lot of them were really complicated. And then just one day, it hit me. And it's simple. And I realize it's simple. And I think that's why I got a lot of pushback at first. But you got to think, at first, this was the industry standard right here. This weighs probably, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds. It's big, heavy wire. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it is dangerous. It's very heavy, it does stretch, and when it breaks, it can take your head off. So first there was metal, and then they came out with synthetic. And synthetic is great. When it breaks, it doesn't have nearly as much tension in it. You'll see this stuff move, but typically it's just the winch line that's moving whenever it does break. And it's very lightweight, but the problem with it is they went lightweight synthetic, but then they put this big chunk of metal on there. That's probably 5 pounds of steel on the end of your nice lightweight synthetic line. This one's not much different. It's just got a huge chunk of metal on this nice synthetic lightweight line. Now there's full synthetic, no metal required. Even still, there was a lot of pushback with synthetic line. You still have the old timers that are like, "I will never use synthetic line. Synthetic is too weak. It's just a rope. How can a rope be strong enough?" Well, this rope is actually stronger than this steel cable, believe it or not. It's perception. Think about it. When seat belts first came out, there was a lot of pushback. People were like, "What is that? You're going to get trapped in there in a fire," or you're going to cut your head off when you get in a car accident. But now we just know seat belts as common sense. Full synthetic line is now common sense as well. At least people are understanding that this is a great winch line, but they haven't yet picked up on this. That's where the bleepin' winch line comes in. We have pushback on that as well, as you can imagine. Of course, there's going to be pushback. It's new, it's changing the industry. It's something that people haven't seen before, but fully synthetic line, no hooks, no metal. They're like, whoa, mind blown. But slowly, we are changing the industry. Here's another example of a hook. That thing, look how big that thing is. That thing works great, it's fine, but another issue that we had was throwing these things. So a lot of times you've got this tree that's up on a bank 10 foot high and your buddy's up there and you got to throw that to him. You could really do some damage. With this, you just wind up, catch it, no problem. Don't knock all your teeth out. But speaking of innovation, we haven't given up. We are still continuing to innovate on the bleepin' winch line. You may ask, what could get any better than that? Well, after years of using this out in the field, what I saw was people that had never seen the bleepin' winch line before. A few of them were using it wrong, mainly because, you know, it's something, any tool that you get, any tool, like whether it be a saw or a lift or any kind of tool, requires some knowledge of how it works. And what I saw was people that didn't know how to use the bleepin' winch line used it wrong a couple times. The people that weren't familiar with it, let's say they were just riding along, they were helping a buddy, those guys, I noticed that they weren't using it correctly. And in version 4, so yes, this is version 3.0. We're now going to come out with a version 4, at least we're working on it. And in version 4, there's going to be a couple new changes. What are those changes, you might ask? Well, in version 4 of the bleepin' winch line, we're going to continue to innovate and make this simpler and easier to use. One thing I did see a lot, people were trying to use this somehow in the winching operation, and that is not what you want to do. So people were trying to put a soft shackle through there. No, doesn't work like that. So in version 4.0, we are going to attempt to get rid of that opening so that doesn't happen. Another thing that I saw is people didn't realize, or they didn't know, that the bleepin' winch line had openings down the line. And so they would get to the tree and they'd be like, what am I going to do with this? Not knowing that you could come back to the line itself and make a loop. So in version 4.0, we're going to highlight these openings so that they'll be much easier to find. And something else that we're doing, not a big change, but this sheath that comes with the bleepin' winch line comes all the way up to the knot. What we're going to do is just move that down the line to reveal the opening. So if people aren't familiar with the line, the sheath isn't covering up the openings when they first use the bleepin' winch line. Let's check my notes here. Here's a good one. So we've moved production back to the US. So from here on out, and this has been for probably about 6 months now, all of our lines are spliced right here in the USA. That's something that was really tough to do, but I know you guys wanted it. It's really hard to make something at an affordable price, which is what you guys wanted, and spliced right here in the USA, but we were finally able to figure that out and bring that back. But since we are coming out with the bleepin' winch line 4.0, that means we've got some of these 3.0s to get rid of. And what does that mean? We're going to discount them. So right now, if you'd like to get yourself a bleepin' winch line, 10% off on all of our version 3.0s until stock runs out. That's something else I forgot to mention is we started out with 3/8, so we now have options. We've got 3/8, we've got 7/16. So the 3/8 is going to be good for your 10,000 pound winch. The 7/16 is going to be good for your 12,000 pound winch. And we also have a 1/4 inch, which is going to be good for your side-by-sides and ATVs. So side-by-sides, I call this one the Jeep, and then this one is something bigger, like a big truck, but it also works great with that 12,000 pound Apex winch, which a lot of people are running nowadays. And you can find all the information, all the stats, anything else that you want to know, how to install this thing, how to work this thing, all on our website at BleepinJeep.com. Just go over to the store, click on Bleepin Winch Line, and there you'll find anything you need to know. So I do want to make some more videos on the Bleepin Winch Line, how to use it, how to install it. I get a lot of questions from people like, will this work on my winch? And a lot of times I see people installing not just the Bleepin Winch Line wrong, but other winch lines wrong, like they don't put tension into it whenever they install it. That's one of the things that you need to do, is put tension into your line when you first spool that thing up. It's not great if you don't do that, and I can show you why in other videos. One of the things you guys also wanted was a 120-foot option for those of you running the 8274, so we do have that in the 7/16, and we do have 12-foot versions too, in case you guys just bought a winch, you're happy with your winch line, but you just want the Bleepin portion of it. You can buy our 12-foot version, and I've got instructions on the website on how to splice that into your current winch line if you don't want to get rid of your whole winch line. So until then, make sure to get your 10% off right now while supplies last on all 3.0 Bleepin winch lines. Once those are gone, we're going to put our 4.0s out, and then you'll lose that 10% off. We're going to go back to regular price. The price isn't going to increase for now, but it's going to go back to regular price. So 10% off right now on the 3.0 versions. And as always, if you have any questions on the Bleepin winch line, feel free to leave those in the comments below. I will answer any and every question that you guys might have. And until then, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting our crazy little YouTube channel. You guys know this started 15 years ago now. I've been doing YouTube for 15 years, and I never thought it would go this far. And one of my goals since I was a kid was to have a patent. And having a patent and being able to sell something to you guys has just been a huge blessing. So I thank you so much for supporting us and spreading the word about the Bleepin winch line, because I do really feel like it's so much safer just having no metal components involved and being so easy to use. It's so much safer. I just can't thank you enough for supporting us in our crazy endeavors. All right, we'll be back to it on Saturday, so thank you guys so much. We have our BleepinJeep Beast Wars coming out, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you then.